I've said very clearly that Donald Trump does not represent the Republican Party. I was offended by his remarks. Listen, Hispanics in America and Hispanics in Texas, from the Alamo to Afghanistan, have been extraordinary people, citizens of our country and of our state.
Trump is wrong on this. He's not a stupid guy, so I don't assume he's like, he thinks that every Mexican crossing the border is a rapist. I mean, so he's doing this to inflame and to incite and to draw attention, which seems to be his organizing principle of his campaign.
Rick Perry and Jeb Bush, just a couple of the GOP presidential candidates slamming Donald Trump. With Miranda Khan, J.D. Hayworth welcoming you back here to Newsmax Prime.
Yes, the fallout continues when it comes to Trump. He's faced a lot of criticism here recently. NBC, Univision, and Macy's have all cut business ties, as you know, with Trump, but he's still surging, meanwhile, in the polls. So many people are asking, is this a good or bad thing for the GOP?
Joining us now to talk about it, a guy who can take the historical perspective. He's the president of Shirley and Bannister Public Affairs, Craig Shirley, Skyping in from Northern Virginia, just close enough to Washington to be especially insightful. We should also point out Craig is also the author of The Last Act, The Final Years and Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan. Craig, as always, thanks for your time here on Newsmax Prime. So,
thank you both.
Here is Donald Trump rising in the polls. You expect the attacks from the left, but a whole lot of fratricide on the right. What are the implications for Trump as a candidate and for the party as a whole?
Well, I think that, as you know, being in electoral politics yourself, is that the more you're attacked, the more you tend to rise in the polls. My suspicion is that the more the establishment, like Jeb Bush, attacks Donald Trump, the more he's going to rise in the polls. I find it a little bit astonishing, and again, I don't have a dog in the fight, but I find it a little bit astonishing that the Republican Party for years has promoted a quote-unquote big tent, whatever that was, and they were supposed to accept people of divergent points of view, whether they're pro-abortion, anti-abortion, pro-gay marriage, anti-gay marriage. But here comes a fresh new voice who has a new perspective and a tough perspective on immigration and on border security, and yet he's read out of the party by the likes of Jeb Bush and Rick Perry. Of course, Rick Perry is so low on the polls, he'll do anything to get attention. He's desperate for attention. So even if it means taking on Trump, then he'll do so. But my guess is, JD, it's going to backfire.
So does this mean that Bush and Perry are scared of him?
Oh, I don't think, Miranda, I don't think there's any doubt that they're scared of him. Is that he's introducing an idea or a set of ideas into the Republican discussion that they would just as soon sweep under the rug and move on and get back onto the comfortable issues that they want to talk about. Donald Trump is bringing up unpleasant things about things that we don't want to necessarily talk about, and that is the risk that many illegal immigrants pose to legal immigrants. And look, I don't think what he said was particularly outrageous. All you have to do is pick up the newspaper every day and you read about new crimes committed by illegal aliens. I don't think it's particularly outrageous what he said. I think what is more outrageous is the way people are overreacting to what he said.
And so is there a risk for people like Jeb Bush and others who take a more border-friendly notion of illegals coming to the country? Can this hurt somebody like Bush as the front runner?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it, because when he is giving up the entire discussion, JD, about illegal immigration, he gives up a lot, maybe even in terms of national security. Look, Bush was already vulnerable on immigration. He's already vulnerable just for being a Bush. He's by extension, he's vulnerable in Afghanistan, Iraq, and even in certain aspects of national security and national defense. So he'll do anything to change the subject, to change the narrative to a more positive one for himself, even if it means attacking Donald Trump. But unfortunately, by attacking Donald Trump, he plays to type, and he comes off as more of an establishment figure than I think he realizes. And of course, we both know he's an establishment figure, and that's fine, but I don't think that's the way to win the Republican nomination.
Craig, in the few minutes that we have remaining, let's switch gears if we can and talk about the Democratic race. Bernie Sanders seems to be this political phenomenon of the moment, and Hillary Clinton seems to be losing ground as Sanders surges in the Iowa and New Hampshire polls. Should the Clinton campaign be worried about Sanders?
Got about 40 seconds to answer, Craig.
The answer is a quick, very quick, Miranda. Yes, they should be terrified of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders represents everything that Hillary doesn't. He's fresh. He's interesting. He's got a message. A lot of conservatives and Republicans don't necessarily agree with it. In fact, a lot of Democrats don't agree with it. But he's got a message nonetheless. Hillary's running a personality campaign. Unfortunately, if you don't like her, then there's not much left to go on based on what she's said so far, which is, in fact, very, very little.
Fair enough. We'll have to leave it right there, Craig. Shirley, we appreciate your time. Donald Trump, of course, rising in Republican polls. Would you vote for him? Go to newsmaxpolls.com and cast your vote. That's newsmaxpolls.com.